For all those taking health supplements and those concerned with maintaining excellent health, the It's a Wrap with Rap podcast is honored to have Life Priority Health and Nutrition as a supporter of the podcast. Life Priority has been providing high quality supplements backed by science since 1994. What makes Life Priority different from other supplement companies? The scientists behind Life Priority, Dirk Pearson and Sandy Shaw, life extension scientists and designer food formulators, are independent experts in anti-aging research and brain biochemistry, and have won many awards, including the Award for Excellence in Health and Education from the Association for Holistic Health for individuals who have made special contributions to biomedical aging research. They wrote the runaway #1 national bestseller, Life Extension, A Practical Scientific Approach in 1982, which was a benchmark in the history of nutritional science and created a whole new biomedical paradigm. The book was deemed by the New York Times as the fountain of youth. Over 30 years ago, World Series champion Greg Pryor and his wife Michelle teamed up with Dirk Pearson to start Life Priority. Greg and Michelle were impressed with the integrity of the product. Dirk and Sandy actually started formulating their supplements only for their own personal use initially, so they take their products every day. Life Priority has over 50 years of collective experience in the health and nutrition industry in specific areas such as manufacturing at FDA, USDA facilities, ingredient analysis, scientific development and consulting, product knowledge and use, legal labeling, and relationships with nutritional product manufacturers. Greg and Michelle are always available to guide their customers in making their choices of formulations to take. You can call them at 800-787-5438, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. U.S. Central Time, and all your questions and concerns will be answered, or you can set up a free consultation time on the website. Please check out the website, lifepriority.com, for detailed information on ordering products and product information. Please use the code RAP for a 10% discount on your first order. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Life Priority Nutrition does not provide medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Life Priority, established in 1994, offers supplements that are scientifically formulated, results-oriented, and generally recognized as safe and are manufactured at USDA and FDA-inspected facilities. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of It's a Wrap with Rap. I'm your host, Ron Rappaport. I would like to thank all of our great listeners, viewers, supporters, and sponsors for helping to make this podcast such a success. The podcast is being heard in all 50 states, all provinces of Canada, and over 70 countries around the world on all the major platforms such as Apple, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, and many others. Please visit our website, itsawrapwithrap.com, to find all the episodes, previews of future episodes, and find products from our sponsors. This podcast features people who have overcome life's challenges and adversities, people who can inspire, motivate, and educate us on an assortment of topics. My guest today is Alain Pelletier. Alain travels across Canada using a diary to explain bullying. He goes through emotion to reach reason. Alain uses this method to reach thousands of young people and teachers every year. Thanks to his theatrical direction, he plays the role of a newly arrived student in a school. It depicts a variety of situations that could arise. Alain brings emotions to life so strongly that it is not uncommon to see young people in tears listening to him. They become able to put words to what they experience. As a driving force for change in institutions, Alain has helped bullies realize the impact of their actions and even open discussions on difficult events, such as the suicide or loss of a loved one. His expertise matches the ever-changing realities of young people, particularly as technologies and social phenomena evolve. Welcome, Alain, to the podcast.
Wow, what an introduction.
I love what you're doing. I think it's great. And we're so happy to have you on here.
Thank you so much.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself growing up, your family dynamics, your schooling, your job career path up to today.
All right. Well, I grew up in a pretty normal family. My dad was a pharmacist. My mom was a nurse. We moved quite a bit around just because I think my dad wanted to pursue, and my mom pursue different career choices, and that had us moving around quite a bit. Uh, when I was younger, I took kinesiology in university. I took nursing in university. I took also paramedic class. So I ended up finishing kinesiology and paramedic. And at some point, I kind of met a man by kind of by accident, and he introduced me. He introduced himself as a public speaker. I must have been the only person in town. He didn't know him, and he thought I was pretty theatrical or pretty colorful as a human being. So he said, "You should do what I do. You should be a speaker." And I said, "I think you're right." So I ended up writing a speech. Back then, I had a theory where I thought that everybody had four needs, which were a physical, intellectual, social, and physical need. And whenever you had those four needs satisfied, you had a complete and balanced day and life. And I ended up, renting a room at university and putting posters across the campus. It was a small campus, so all of my friends came to see the speech that I wrote, and I ended up liking it. So they ended up liking it. So they thought, hey, when are you doing another one, right? And I said, well, I should do another one. So I ended up doing another one about a month afterwards, and one of the person that saw one of those extremely, at young age speech, which would I dare call it a speech, ended up being a person in a school system where they would be responsible for bullying, and said, you know what, I need to do a host a speech on bullying. Do you want to do that? I said, sure. And I didn't even know how a grader looked, right? I didn't have kids then. I didn't know. So I went to a school where I had friends. I said, show me, how what they look and how they, and I ended up writing something, and I really enjoyed it. And the way I wrote it is, I thought to myself, well, the only way I could possibly make somebody understand bullying is how, if I show them the emotions, and if I can get those emotions through to them and they actually feel without having somebody be bullied, right? That would
Right.
be a good explanation. And whenever you go through something that's very emotional in your life, and you end up associating with certain intellectual, right, definitions, that definition will stick a lot longer, right? We all remember, because I remember exactly where I was when I saw the news on 9/11, right? That was emotionally impactful for them. I know exactly where I was when I heard the news that Michael Jackson had passed, right? So that those are emotions. When you associate intellectual those emotions, it sticks with you. So I said, I'm not gonna go to that level, but if I can give them emotions, show them, and make them feel something, and I can associate intellect on those emotions, that'll stick to them longer. So that was the goal initially, right? And I ended up doing this for the last, I believe it's 14 or 15 years now. So I
Wow.
think it's working. I think I'm doing something good because they keep
Yeah.
calling me.
And you're going all through Canada? Is it only Canada?
I'm right now. It's only Canada. I'm in all 10 provinces and plus territories. Wherever there are schools, I've been, both French and English. I usually average about 200 schools per school year, which gives me about 400 speeches every school year. So that's quite a bit of speaking for a speaker. When you're doing this full time and you speak 400 times a year,
That's
it's
a
a
lot.
lot. Yeah.
That is a lot. Do you have any plans to go to the States?
Well, I think that's the normal progression.
Yeah.
I think that even if I don't, like, the goal was to make it full time and to be able to live off of it, right? And whenever that's achieved, you just put it on cruise control, and I think it's going to go there naturally speaking, right? Because I mean, we all have the same problems in our schools, right? And
Right.
we all think the same. The culture's not different from the two Americas. And when I think like America and Canada, there's it we're raised quite similarly. So I get the feeling that sooner than later I'm gonna get the privilege to be able to go at some point, right? But not till today. Maybe tomorrow, but not today.
Okay. So it's kind of interesting. That fella just brought up the subject of bullying, and you said, yeah, let's do it.
And I just jumped in feet first.
Yeah.
And you know what the interesting part? I think that the problem is whenever you study in education, they show you a way of thinking. They teach you how to teach somebody else, right? So there's a way of doing it. And because I was not a teacher, I kind of went way left field with it, right? It wasn't a conventional way of bringing the subject. Because if you think, if I gave you the task of writing a speech on bullying, you're gonna tell a story and maybe put PowerPoints in and give statistics and stuff. I don't have a PowerPoint. I don't have books. I have a mic and my face, and that's it, right?
No, yeah,
I
that's
just
great.
within that, and the story's not built in a way where I say, well, this is what happened to me, right? I tell the story as if I'm the kid. So I give the line of the diary, and the diary is just there to give the audience a timeline and where I'm going with this, right? So I live the kid as if I'm the kid, and while I'm saying it, that story creates a platform where I can generate, transmit, and make the audience feel. And if you were in a room and I would give you that monologue, that story. And if your task would be to write every emotion that you feel or you see that I'm generating on stage, and you make a list out of it, that is the exact list of whoever saw themselves as a victim. You know that clubs because of bullying is not a picture; it's a process, right? It's a movie. There's a process to this, but there's a social process and there's an emotional process, and that emotional process is going to be the exact blueprint of whoever saw themselves as the one comment I have the most is that's exactly my story. Well, when they say that, they don't say, well, your school bag was ripped open, that you went to hide in this little corner store from the school. You didn't skip class. That wasn't exactly it. They're not talking about the specifics of the story. They're talking about the specifics of the emotion, like that process that they're going through while I'm saying or telling the story. That's what they're relating to, right? They say exactly what happened to me. So if you're a teacher or you're a parent listening to this and you do that thing and the kid comes to you and say, hey, you know what, I think I'm being bullied, and how are you feeling? And whenever you talk to them a bit, you can kind of generate or see wherever they are in that process, right? And depending on where they are, that's going to direct your interventions, right? You're going to know exactly what to do as a parent or as a teacher or as a social worker or a principal. You're going to know how to direct your question and how to direct your intervention depending on where they are in their process, right? So
Yeah.
that's the goal. That's the goal.
Well, I like the way you took it, and you said they kind of told you how to do it, and you kind of said you threw the book away, and you said, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it my way. And it's the same thing with this podcast. I'm not a
Yeah.
professional announcer or whatever, but we go off script all the time, and we put out a good product, and people like it, and just like you're doing. Uh, what, in your opinion, is today's definition of bullying?
Wow, what a question. Wow. All right. I'll give you two answers. All right.
Okay.
The because that's the base of the problem. I think it's the base of the problem. Because when you speak to kids, If ever you go into a school and you tell them, hey, can you define bully? They're going to tell you the exact same thing. It's a certain word or a certain actions that's being done over a certain period of time by somebody that's, higher or tougher or bigger or, over the experience. So it's being done to you,
More
more
powerful.
powerful with, and you can define powerful as you want.
Yeah.
That's be done to you, right? So that makes you feel this way. And that's kind of what, and the problem is they were telling to these kids, this is what bullying is, this is how we define it, and if ever you're being bullied, go see a teacher. Well, now that definition is extremely gray. It means everything and nothing, and as soon as a kid feels something bad, they go see a teacher. Well, he's bullying me. Well, not really, right? Your big sister, your big brother, or they're not bullying you if they steal your truck, they steal the remote control. They're not bullies, right?
Right.
The only question you should ask your teacher or your students or kids is, whatever you felt when you received that word or that action or that situation, did you feel angry? Did you feel sad? Or did you feel scared? Whenever kids are, if ever I do something to somebody and my intentions are for them to be scared, that's bullying. If you feel angry, it's probably not bullying, right? It's probably some, your big brother pulling your pressing on your buttons. So the goal is to create fear into somebody towards you. That's called bullying. So we need to redefine the word and to make it a little more precise. And that starts from the emotions of the victims.
Okay. So how does the definition of what you just said impact victims?
What do you mean? How does it impact them?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell you what, this is how, the books are saying this is how it usually starts. It usually starts between 3 and 4 years old. Let's say I'm a kid that's somewhere between 3 and 4 years old, and I'm playing with a ball. And I'm playing by myself. I'm not bothering anybody. I'm not playing with anybody. I'm just playing my game. I'm having my fun. And another kid comes to me and says, hey, Alain, can I have that ball? I want to play with it by myself another game. I say, obviously, I'm saying, no, I want to play with the ball. I'm keeping myself and I want to keep going. That kid kind of feels rejection, right? By a peer, not by an elder or somebody or a teacher or a parent. He feels somebody that should not have any control over him or her. So they feel anger or frustrated or rejected. And with that anger, they kind of push me. And when I fall, I drop the ball. And as soon as I drop the ball, he picks it up. Obviously, a teacher or somebody else going to see that somebody got violent. You can't push your friends. He's going to get in trouble. I pick my ball up and I keep going, and that's it. That kid just understood the first thing. The first thing is, if ever that kid gets violent, he's going to get exactly what he wants from me, even if he was rejected by a peer or he was told no and his ego got in the way. Later on throughout that day, later on throughout that week, I'm still playing with that ball by myself. I'm not bothering anybody. That kid comes to me again and says, hey, Anne, can I get that ball? I remember what you did last time. You hurt me. Maybe I cried. I was hurt. I'm scared of you, that you're stronger than me. I'm gonna say, you know what? Here's the ball. You can keep it. I'll find myself another game. I'll find myself another thing to do. That kid just realized the second thing. If ever that kid can make me be scared of him, he's going to get exactly what he wants. He's not going to get told no, so he's not going to get rejected by a peer, and he's go directly into. And he didn't push me, so if he doesn't push me, he doesn't get in trouble. So if he doesn't get in trouble, it's okay what he did. So he's bypassing the rejection emotion. He's going straight to the confident level. We all want to find confidence in ourselves. And if we don't show our kids and our teacher and our students how to get confidence the good way, they're going to find it by themselves. And maybe it's going to be socially speaking. So what's in it for the victim? It's going to be that fear that resides in them. That's what you want to take out of them.
What about that same definition impacting bystanders?
Oh, bystanders are extremely well interesting angle, because the bystanders, whenever they create power into the bully, and they create unempowerful feeling from the victim, right? Because if they don't do anything, the bully will feel like everybody's with them, or they're going to be okay with what they did or they said, because they're not doing anything to stop them, and the victim feels like everybody's against them and okay with the bully, not because nobody's helping me out and stopping the situation. So it creates social movement or social power towards that bully. Now it's a kind of like a shock and state of shock feeling, right? These victims are not, or these bystanders, should I say, they're not saying to themselves, "Hey, the victim kind of deserves it." We all think it's funny. Maybe we laugh because uncomfortably, but we're not laughing like the bully is, right? Or the kid doing the bullying is laughing, right? We're doing it in shock. We're doing it in because we don't want to get rejection, because we don't want that situation happening to us, so we don't do anything. While we don't do anything, we're not saying to ourselves, like I said, we're not saying that the victim deserves it. We're saying, I hope it never happens to me. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to intervene. I'm not going to step in. So I'm just going to sit back and relax. And whenever they do that, they're actually non-verbally communicating to the bully. I agree what you're doing and saying. I'm not going to do anything to stop you. Coast is clear. Act as if I'm not even there. I'm letting the situation happen. And you're communicating non-verbally speaking to the victim. I agree what's happening to you. I'm not going to do anything to defend you or to stop whatever's happening to you. You're on your own. I'm out. I'm letting the situation happen. So you're actually giving comfort and power over the person doing the bullying. So you need to be able to figure out where you are as a bystander. That same whenever I teach, I go in schools, I tell them that there's a difference between an active and a passive bystander, right? Whenever you're passive, you're letting the
Right.
situation happen. Whenever you're an active bystander, I'm not saying that these bystanders should stop the situation and intervene and stop the problem by themselves. What I am asking them is, you should non-verbally react this way. You should look away and dissociate yourself from the situation, which is going to be your normal reflex, and go inside and go see an adult in which you trust and say, hey, you should go talk to this and this is what's happening, right? The teachers are not going to say, hey, you should go talk to her. She just ratted on you. They're not going to say that, right? So whenever those active bystanders create bridges on an adult in which they trust and a kid that needs a listening, that's when we start to see an improvement in the schools, right? Because whenever a kid does or says something that's mean, they're not going to do it in front of all the teachers, right? If I were to hire 100 teachers and I put them in the hallways, in the classroom, in the cafeteria, they're not going to do that. They're going to wait till nobody's looking. They're going to wait till they're walking to or from home, in the bus, in the changing rooms, with the computer or cell phone, right? In the park, in their community. Because these teachers, even if I hire 100 of them, they're not going to be everywhere. It's impossible to have eyes on them for all the time. So they'll just wait it out. So we need to create that bridge. It's easier to a person to educate a person that's not emotionally involved in the situation, right? To go see somebody that can help, and to say, hey, you should go see that kid. He probably needs somebody to talk to, than to say to a kid that's feeling bullied, that's probably not able to understand and to feel probably all of those negative emotions. Say, you know what? You should go talk to an adult. You should go seek some help. Well, as a victim, I don't know what help I need. I don't understand the emotions. I don't know who I can talk to. Plus, they're only jokes. Who's going to understand and believe the jokes? So if I can't verbalize it properly, it's extremely hard. So it's easier to go get the answer and to bring it to somebody that has a problem, than to say to somebody that has a problem, you should go get an answer or a solution, right? So whenever you have the bystander in the equation, it's a much easier and happier process.
It's a plus. It's definitely a
It's a
plus.
huge plus. Plus, I had a couple of situations lately where I had to talk about um, people with online bullying, and people sharing videos and stuff, and everybody's kind of going out their minds on people sharing videos. And I said to them, that's a double-edged sword, because if those bystanders, spread videos and spread rumors, that's a problem. But let's say I'm in the possession of a video, and I go see an adult and I show them the video. That's proof, like that's proof that they can't hide from. If they have a recording, I had a situation where there was it was at a private school, and a mother was in a situation where her son was bullying other kids, and she never believed it. And she was like, my kid doesn't talk like that. My kid doesn't talk like, he doesn't say. And at a certain point, a student recorded that kid talking to another kid. And whenever they asked the mother to go see the principal, they said, "What's going on again? My kid doesn't." They made her listen to the kid talking, and she started crying because she said,
Sure.
"I don't believe that's coming out of his mouth." So they can't hide anymore. So again, it's a double-edged sword, because if you teach those bystanders how to create bridges, it's going to be a much harder process to hide and to create empty spaces for us to say or do some certain things.
That's a great concept, because I know in the past they always used to come up to the kid and say, "Hey, go tell somebody what's going on," and they don't want to
Exactly.
do that. Yeah. So it's
Well, they say that they think that the situation is going to happen to them, but that's so false. No, nothing's going to happen to these bystanders. And if everybody holds physically, emotionally speaking, hands, and they kind of say, you know what, everybody's doing the same thing, it's going to stop.
yeah.
It's going to make it a lot better. And let's say, not wanting to say it's going to stop, but it's going to make it a lot better.
Let's just go on to the next question, which is kind of how does the definition impact the bullies themselves?
Well, the bullies, okay, first of all, we call them bullies. I don't like to call, like, a person a bully, because we need to separate the action or word from the person, right? Because whenever you're a kid that does or said certain things, let's say I insult you. And obviously, at some point, a teacher or parents are going to hear that, and they're going to come up to the kid that's doing the wording, and they're going to say, why did you say that? And that kid's going to say, well, it's just a joke. And this is where we need to realize that they're right. It is a joke. Because whenever we say and do certain things and we think it's funny, well, a joke is supposed to be funny. So whenever we laugh at something, that laughter qualifies something as funny. So whenever I insult another kid and the teacher comes to me and says, "Hey, why did you say that? That was so mean." And the kid says, "Well, that was just a joke." It's right. They're right. It was a joke to them. Empathy and sympathy are emotions that come really late in their development. Extremely hard for someone to understand that someone else can feel a completely different emotion I am while I'm saying or doing certain things, right?
Right.
So, and whenever I say and do certain things, and I think it's funny, I think, feel, and understand that whoever saw, heard, or received that joke is feeling the exact same way I'm feeling. So we need to separate the action from the person. I'm never going to go into a school or a meeting or a session and say, "Hey, you are a bully." No, what you did, your action is bullying, but you are not a bully, right? That doesn't define that kid as a bad person. We have this stigma or this imagination of having this big bad wolf in front of us. It's not a the
Yeah.
kids. No parent raises their kids to be mean people, right? We do our best with whatever we have, whatever we were raised with, and whatever we have with time and dignity, that we do our best. So we can't point fingers like that. So whenever I say a bully, it's a person that did or did or said something that was mean, right?
Right.
So whenever they do, up to uh, grade 9 or 10, whenever that's the age where they start to realize and to understand empathy and sympathy, that others can feel different emotions. I'll say whenever I speak to high schools, the most popular grades are grade 7 and 8s. That's where they still think it's funny. They're trying to find their place, socially speaking, into different groups. They don't want to be left out. They want to be, integrated, and it's socially harder for them. After a little while, they get the process and they understand. Whenever I speak to grade 7, 8, maybe 9s a bit, that's where whenever I have those big emotions, whenever I'm generating, like I can cry on command whenever I feel anger, whenever I have these big bits in the story, they kind of mock me. They laugh, but they're not laughing like, oh, the guy's crying, ha ha. They're laughing where they're feeling a whole bunch of different emotions. It's hard to feel. Maybe they're not there in the development to understand quite what's happening, and they're laughing out of, they can't externalize it properly, right?
Right.
So it comes out in a laughter. But I mean, they're not laughing at me. I'm not feeling like they're making fun of me. They're laughing. I usually say they're laughing like waves. It goes ha ha ha, and then they stop, then ha ha ha, and then it stops. They're laughing, and they're trying to create, to fill that gap or that silence that I'm creating for them to feel and completely enjoy that emotion. They're kind of breaking it. Don't want to feel that way. It's kind of hard for them to go through that first process. So yeah.
So it's fair to say that uh, a good percentage of the bullying is taking place in the middle school years,
I
as
think that,
opposed to, say, your primary school years or your high school years.
all right, what I'll say is, I think that elementary schools, it's a lot easier to make them understand that what they did and what they said was mean, and they should say sorry, and it we can still teach them. They can still process it in their intellect, and they can understand that they did something wrong. They'll say sorry. They'll feel bad. They'll Whenever they come to 6, 7, 8, 9, whenever they come to that age group, um, their center of their universe is not their family anymore, right? It's their friends, and they want to find their space in that group, socially speaking. And it's a lot, and emotionally speaking, this is where they get to feel bigger emotions clearer, and they can't process it normally. It's very hard to put a word on it. So like the first time you felt love or you felt reject, or you react so bigger. But if you get rejection whenever you're 40, you're gonna say, well, okay, it's done, right?
Yeah.
So because you understand the process, you understand the emotion. There's a lot more how do you call it, internal process that goes through. You understand the emotions, you know how to, calm them down. So it's just an emotional climax where they grow, and they have a problem with dealing with that growth spur, emotionally speaking, right? So yeah, it's those are my favorite groups. This is where I get the bigger, like I could have some kids crying and having to leave, and I have kids laughing and mocking me. So I have the wide spectrum, and
Yeah.
to me this is like candy. Like, it's perfect, right? Because they're not laughing at me, they're uncomfortably laughing. So to me, it's, I can usually pick in, I can usually say in a high percentage who are the potential victims, who are the potential bullies, and who are the potential bystanders in a group within a couple of minutes. And
Oh,
when
I
I say
bet.
bully, like potentially bullies, and you know what I think about calling a kid a bully, right? So
Yeah.
that could do bullying.
So your method of reaching thousands of young people and teachers each year utilizes a theatrical approach. Tell us about your method of reaching people.
Well, the goal, okay, the Mona Lisa, there's two reasons why the Mona Lisa is the Mona Lisa. There's the mythical smile, where there's the absence of emotions, and there the legend say that they say that wherever you are in the room, it seems like she's looking at you. And I'm not saying I'm Da Vinci by no means. I'm saying that the goal of the speech is not to say, "Hey, look at me, have pity towards me. You should, feel bad towards me." That's not the goal. The goal is to give a story where whoever that's in the room that ever saw themselves as a victim are going to say, "Hey, that's actually what happened to me. This is exactly my." It's like you're telling the story. It's the common denominator, and that's the goal. It's not just. I'm not taking the eyeballs on me. I'm taking the eyeballs on somebody that could ever and doesn't have a voice or doesn't have because that kid resides in everybody. We all have that kid. That situation happened to us. That situation happened to a kid at school. That story that I tell, the story that you listen, and the movie that you play in your head is three completely different stories because we all have that sofa, we all have that car drive back home that mom and dad came to get us to school, we all have that corner store, we all have that hallway, we all have that bag, we all have these imaginations. So the story is to create bridges with whatever these kids have went through in their lives and felt in their lives to create a impactful situation where now after that we can give the proper definitions and attach them to the emotions that they felt, because bottom line is whoever sees the story, they're going to see themselves, they're going to see themselves in a situation where they were potential victims, where they were potential bullies, or they were potential bystanders. They're going to see themselves in a situation that did happen to them in their lives. And they're going to say, "Oh, this is why I felt this way. This is why I reacted this way. This is why I wanted to go hide in the hallway where nobody goes that way. This is why I wanted to keep away. This is why I didn't know how to act. This is why I was in shock." This is, it kind of creates, that's normal for me to react this way. And next time it does, this is what you should do, right? Because the story's not built in a way where the person, the kid, gets out of the situation and there's no happy ending. It ends with, "I don't know what to do. I don't know what these feelings are, and I don't know where to go." And I'm not telling the story to tell you this is what you need to do to get out of bullying. I'm telling the story to tell you this is what's going to happen if you're going through bullying. You're going to ask yourself these questions, you're going to go through these emotions, and you're going to see the world in this specific angle, and this is how you're going to see the world. And after that, the kids are usually saying, "Well, you shouldn't do that. Go see a teacher. This is what you should do," because the intellect is part of the process. I'm going through the emotions, but they're saying to me, "What are you doing, buddy? Go see a teacher." They're telling me what to do, right? They don't believe their eyes of what I. But so when I talk to them, they say, "Well, you realize that I took all of those emotions and I reacted to those emotions. I took the wrong answer. I took the wrong way out, right? Now, if you ever find yourself in that situation, you should do whatever you thought I should have done in that situation, right? This is how you're going to get out of it." And then I go into the intellectual part, right? The theory part of the speech. So yeah,
I'm just
I had a
curious.
go
Well,
for it.
I was just curious. You obviously revisit schools, correct?
Yep.
What kind of feedback do you get from the teachers? I probably the feedback might not be from the students because they move on or they graduate or they go to another school, but what kind of feedback are you getting?
They Two things happen. One, they tell me that the kids refer to the story throughout the school year. They don't they never lose sight of it. And the teachers, they usually, I tell them, R&D, like rob and duplicate. You should take whatever words I'm using and to use it in your normal everyday life, right? Whenever I go into schools, I don't replace a teacher, I don't replace a social worker, I don't replace anybody. I'm a trampoline. What I do is I create an impact, and then their role is to keep that, generate that impact as long as possible. Like for example, like I have this bit with a sheet of paper, and I make the sheet of paper into a paper ball. And then when I open the ball, I say, well, every one of those creases is a situation that wasn't, I felt the same way by everyone. And I have this whole bit on this sheet of paper. And they say, well, you can't take the crease out, but you can take the deepness of the crease out. So the goal is not to find, because we always say to ourselves, well, how do we stop bullying? And that's a hard question to ask ourselves, right? Because whenever we ask ourselves the question, how do we stop bullying? We're going to come up with certain answers, and it's not going to work, right? It did happen, it does, and it will always happen. We can't stop it. We can make it better, but we can't stop it. And for us to ask ourselves the question, how do we stop bullying, is like we're asking ourselves, how do we create a world where kids or teachers, or kids or students, should I say, are going to go through with no creases on their paper. So I'll tell you what, everyone that I meet are going to have creases on their paper. We're all going to go through a situation that you saw yourself as a victim. The goal is not to have no creases in your paper. The goal is to take the deepness out of that crease. The goal is to have that, not have that crease define us for a long period of time, and for us to become somebody that we're not supposed to be, and to carry an emotional load for a long period of time, and to have the process mixed up. So the goal is not to have no crease. The goal is to take the deepness. And the teachers, and I have this big with it, and the teachers usually when they do is they take a paper ball, and they put the paper that's all creased up on a board. They just leave it there for the rest of the situation, the rest of the school year. And whenever the kids refer to bullies, they want to talk, they refer to that paper, because the paper kind of refers to something that was not felt very well, right? That kind of hurt us. It creates a bridge between, here's what I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to tell it, but you know what? That paper Alain did, that kind of resonates with me. Can I talk to you, right? So they kind of point out. So I tell them, take whatever I just told you. Like for example, that bystander, like the passive and active, take those definitions and run with them, right? You carry them. So whenever I go into schools, the kids, they usually say, well, it's exactly what happened to me. They're not, like I said, they're not referring to the story specifically. They're referring to the emotions I attach the story with. And the teachers, they usually, I tell them to sit on the sides, because whenever I talk to the kids, I tell them, listen to the guy, but look at you kids. And within that 45 to 75 minutes, you're going to know exactly what question to ask them, because they're going to be yelling, physically speaking, what they're going through. You're going to know exactly what their emotions they're living and going through while they're living. It's going to be a live feed situation. And whenever you go to class, you're going to know exactly what question to ask them, because they're going to be yelling whatever emotions they're going through whenever they're faced with the situation. And sometimes people have a different look or a different realization, say, you know what, I did something wrong. And then whenever they open up, they say, well, here's how you can make it right, right? So now it kind of creates a bridge between, at least an open door for them to have a conversation. So that's usually what happens.
Well, I like your expression about the deepness, because the bullying can, I mean, it can affect, it can cause trauma, and it can affect these kids going forward forever.
Exactly.
And and we're never going to get rid of bullying, you're right. But just tempering the deepness is very important. So yeah, I applaud you for that. Now, your lecture is in 4 versions to suit your audience, which
Yep.
changes every year. Tell us about those versions.
Well, I have a version for the grade one, two, threes,
Okay.
one for the grade four, five, six, one for the high schools, one for the parents, and one for the teachers. So there's actually 5 versions of them. And those versions, the same stories being told, but the older the audience is, the more dates that there are, so I can make the story more complex. And there's a lot more details By this I mean, whenever I speak to high schools, there's a lot more social media, there's a lot more texting and cell phones involved compared to the grade 1 through 3s, right?
Sure.
So and there's so the story can differ from an audience to another, and the emotions are going to be very different. So if you see the speech giving to the 1 2 3s and 4 5 6, you're going to see a nice climax. I'm going to give a lot more emotions, and I'm going to go a little deeper because emotionally speaking, they're there in their development. They can understand a little more. The goal is not to have a grade 1 have nightmares at night after a speech that I did, right? The goal is not to traumatize them, right? The goal is to give them an emotion that they can feel and understand. So I'm dialing it down to
Gotcha.
a level where they are. So the story changes to adapt to their reality. The emotions change to adapt to their emotional development, and the intellectual part, or should I say, the definitions is going to change. Like the theory part is going to change as well, because we don't understand the same thing about bullying when you're in grade 12, then you're grade 6, then you're grade 1. So I adapt the speech intellectually and emotionally speaking to the audience in which I talk to. And I call the speech the 5 faces of bullying. When I speak to kids, there's only 3 faces, right? I define bullies, victims, and bystanders. When I speak to parents and teachers, there's victims, bully, bystanders, parents, and teachers, and there's a sixth portion, which is how do we stop it? And when I speak to teachers, there's an extra hour on here's what you should do as a school or as a teacher or as a social worker or as a principal. Here's what your school should do for victims, bullies, bystanders, and parents. So I kind of change angles and I sit into the teacher's angle and say, here's how you should approach these different actors. So I give them a little bit more. So the teachers is a half a day session compared to the grade 1s, which is 30 to 40 minutes, whichever I
Sure.
can get out of them, right?
Sure. Do you plan on expanding your audience to actually talk about maybe bullying as far as the workplace goes or anything like that?
That's a great pass on the right on the stick. I actually have my first workplace bullying speech May 15th in New Brunswick in Canada. So that's gonna it's written out, it's written, it's practice, it's done. I just need to wait till May 15th to see how it goes. But I'm giving my first workplace bullying, and if that one goes well, I'm going to expand a lot more on that one as well, right? Because that exists and nothing's being done. That I think I'm thinking if the process goes well in schools and with teachers and parents, it should go well with the workplace as well. So the same process, the story and theory that goes with it.
Right.
The
And you
blueprint's
would,
going to be the same.
yeah, you would have I guess at the top, the employer
Yeah,
or HR or whatever. Uh, how can we minimize the damage bullying plays in our lives?
it's great. That's great. Great questions. Um, okay. Like I said earlier, we can't stop it, but we can minimize it. And the way we do that is by creating or showing our kids how to create confidence in themselves. If I talk to a kid that's captain of the well, here it's hockey, everybody plays hockey, but baseball or basketball or ballet or swimming, or they do a lot, and they're good at it, and they have good grades, they have a lot of friends, they have a good teacher student relationship, they have a lot of positive parental presence. You insult that kid, they're going to say, well, buzz off, right? It doesn't affect me. They can have a crease, but there's not going to be any deepness in that crease. You can't
Right.
get to that kid. That kid confidence in her or himself. But I'm not talking to that kid. I'm talking to the kid that doesn't have a lot of grade or good grades. He doesn't have a lot of friends. He doesn't get to play sports or doesn't have an extracurriculum activity. He doesn't have the privilege to do any of this. He doesn't have a lot of positive parental presence, right? Dad's home, not a lot, but and whenever he's home, he talks to me in an angry voice. I kind of feel like I'm walking on thin ice when I'm with him. He's angry with me, and I don't understand why. I'm scared whenever he's in the house. Mom's there, but she's always on her phone. She doesn't know that I exist. She doesn't give me any attention. You talk to that same insult, that same game could be like that, or somebody that's going to be affected by bullying for a long time. So we define bullying as an action, but that same word, that same insult can create two different emotions in two different kids in two different situations, right? So how do we minimize it is by creating confidence in our kids and showing our kids how to create that positive impact. It can be, in small details. For example, like I said, I have two younger kids, 4 and 7, and last couple of months ago, we finished a session in swimming classes. And whenever kids get out of the pool after the swimming classes, where do they go? They go to the candy machines, right? And whenever I gave them both a quarter, and I told them, both of my kids, go put it in one of the candy thing and leave it there. Don't crank it. Just put it there. And we went to sit, and I said, watch. And this being said, a couple of kids came in and they saw the money, and they were all excited and they were happy because maybe mom and dad don't have the quarter, maybe, and they had the candy, and they saw these kids being happy and excited and all right. But they they were responsible for that. They saw that the emotion that they did for something that's quarter, right? So, but after that, I gave them a quarter, go get the candy, and that was it. But I showed them, here's how you can create a positive impact and have confidence in yourself by doing something positive, on the contrary of doing something negative, right? So we
Right.
all want to have confidence in ourselves. Our goal as a teacher, as a parent, is show them how to get that confidence, positively speaking.
If this is just a general question for people listening to this, uh, not necessarily, could be anywhere in the world. What should schools do for victims, bystanders, and bullies that don't do anything right now? What should they do?
Well, they're not doing anything because they're scared of having that pressure of the parents and having the pressure of putting an etiquette on a person, right? So one, they should separate the action from the kid. So don't qualify that kid as a bad person. Qualify that kid as somebody in something that did something wrong. And when you separate them, it's a lot easier to understand and to make that better. So one, they should show these victims how to get confidence in themselves. They should teach the bystander how to create a bridge between the adult and the kid, and they should separate the emotion from the action from the person for the bystanders. Something very simple that I give to every school is I tell them, you guys should come up with a safe word. It could be as simple as, do you have a minute? Because certainly in this period of time, like all the kids are fed up. Like winter's still added. Sunshine is not, depending on which state you are, maybe sunshine is not necessarily something that's impactful, but here it's a big impact. Um, Teachers were frustrated. We're having different pressure from the board and everything. There's a whole bunch of different emotions, and we're not as patient as September and October, right? So this is pretty specific, and it's easier for a teacher to say, "You just go play elsewhere. It's going to figure it out by themselves." They're not minimizing the situation. They don't know where to put their attention properly, right? But if a kid says, you know what, that safe word is, do you have a minute? And whenever a teacher hears that, do you have a minute? You put your pen and your foot down, you close your computer, and you turn completely toward that kid and you give them 100% of your attention. Because if a kid says that safe word, I give them, do you have a minute? It can be anything, but do you have a minute? That means that
Yeah.
that kid's saying, you know what? I don't feel so good. I have a lot of trouble explaining it. I don't know who I can talk to, but I think you'd be a good person. Do you have a minute in your schedule so we can find a time to talk about something that's really hard to understand. This is what easy things that don't cost anything, but that's going to create a bridge between easier bridge for a kid to go talk to an adult and to make sure that that adult hears and listen, give them the proper attention that they need.
Well, hopefully, people out there who are listening to this podcast, in that situation can take that advice. Uh, do you have any plans to lecture in other countries, perhaps virtually?
I wish I did. I'm starting to get invitations to do podcasts in different countries. So I'm thinking that it's going to branch out that way. I would love to give it virtually speaking. I'd love to give it like it live in presence as well. Um, I I'm happy to see where my career is taking me and what kind of, directions it's taking by itself, right? Right now it's pretty much on cruise control. Right now I'm doing something well and it's being recognized, but slowly but slowly it's going growing outside of what I thought was I would considering it successful, 15 years ago. So it's probably something that's going to happen, and whenever that happens, I'm going to be a happy man.
Sounds good. Can you give us, how about just one success story that somebody told you that was all because of you? Can you
Yeah.
give us one?
Yeah, I will. Actually, I'm in that school yesterday and today. It's a school that I've done for the last 10 or 12 years, and I go every year. And the first year I went to that school, I had a situation where there was a young girls, and one of them, their parents were involved several times. The counselors were involved. The psychologists were involved, and that little girl did not understand that she was doing something wrong, but she was on another girl's case, and she was bullying her for a long period, for several years. And the first time I gave that speech, I usually go after the speech, I'd go talk to the teachers and the principals. Hey, was that up to the level of expectations? How did it go? What did you see and whatnot, right? Get a feedback. And I was with the counselor, and there's a psychologist there. So the psychologist and the principal in a classroom where nobody was there, and we're talking about it. And one of the teachers kind of came in, and she said to the principal, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Ironically speaking, right?
Yeah.
And she said, "You know that little girl?" And she named them, and she said she just went to the her victim and say sorry and gave her a hug. And then I saw the principal with two tears just dropping down her cheeks, and she said, "Oh my God!" And because I have a bit where there's a hug and there's a you should say sorry, and there's a big, so she listened exactly word for word that I say that you should do. So that little girl saw herself in the role of the victim in the story that I gave, and she realized that she did something wrong. And when I give the theory on the bullies, I give them this is what you should say that doesn't make you a bully, but maybe you realize that you did something wrong. This is what you should do to make it right. And she actually that said that word for word within a few minutes after my speech. And that's when that one was one of the first instances where I saw, you know what I'm doing is I'm making a big impact
Right.
immediately speaking into those schools. And if they listen to me, they do exactly what I say, it's going to make it better. But this is the first time I ever felt, holy Jesus, this is, wow, they're listening to me. They got what I was saying, right? They're actually understanding when I'm trying to communicate with them on different levels. So that was one of the few times, first times, should I say, that I said, wow, I was kind of proud of myself
Oh yeah.
to help out with that situation. So that was a big one at first whenever I started out.
That was a big confidence booster for you too, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And you can't buy those kind of stories. You know what I mean?
You can't.
You can't put a price on something like that. Uh, how can people contact you, Alan, if they're listening to this and they want to talk to you or they want
The
to
best way, the
email you or
best
whatever?
way is to go on the website, which is www.alainpelletier.ca, which I think you're gonna put in the comment box or somewhere, right?
I
My
am,
personal
yeah.
my personal email and my personal phone. I don't have an agent. I do everything by myself. So if you call, it's my personal cell phone. I'm gonna answer the phone. I'm gonna answer the email. I don't have somebody that works for me. I do it all by myself. I do that all by myself.
I can
Um,
relate because I do this all by myself, so I know exactly where
Exactly.
you're coming
So the
from.
best way is to go on the website and to go in the contact section. And that's you're gonna find a lot of videos, a lot of explanation, and you're gonna see all of those different age groups that I talked to in details, and you're gonna have all that contact information. So if ever somebody has a question or an interest on in hosting a speech in their school or schools, they can contact me that way, and this is how you start the communication with me. That's the
Okay.
best way.
Now, for the audience, I want to clarify something. I've been calling him Alan, and it's really spelled differently. So it's going to be in the podcast notes, but just so everybody knows, it's not going to be a misprint. It's www.ALAINPELLETIER.ca. So that's how you spell Alan.
In
Uh,
French, I'm sorry
in
about that.
French. Now, don't be sorry. Now, for those out there listening, Alan, and being affected by bullying, what advice do you have for them and their parents, if applicable? Just people out there listening to this.
So if ever you're going through a situation like that, is you probably don't seem like there's a way out. I can promise you there is a way out, and the way out is not by not talking or reacting. So you need to talk, even if you don't have the proper words on the proper explanation. You need to talk to someone. Like I said, that do you have a minute? It could be any adult that you have confidence in. It can be your mom and dad, it could be your teacher, it could be a school's counselor, it could be you need to talk to someone. And if ever you're a parent listening to this, you should respect your kids' process of going to this, because one of the problem that the parents have is you're going with bullying, come with me, we're going to go to school and we're going to fix this by yourself. Your role is to guide your kid through the situation and not fix it by yourself, right? So your goal is a guidance and not some you're not you're not not a bully, you're not a bodyguard, you're not a
A
gorilla, right?
vigilante, so to speak.
Exactly, right. So you
Right.
need to guide them. So, and whenever something, you listen to them, ask them the proper questions, and after you say, "Well, what's the situation? What's the process? What's the solution?" And ask them if they don't have a solution. Maybe you can propose some, and if they don't want to go through it, you need to wait and to let them be ready for you to take the next step. They're going to tell, whenever they're ready to go see a teacher. Maybe they go by themselves. Maybe you go with them for the first time. Maybe you write an email for them to have a counselor talk to them. Whatever it is, you need to listen to the process of your kids, however they feel comfortable in going through with this. You can't fix it by yourself. You need to guide them and to help them and not fix it by yourself.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice. Alan, I want to thank you for being on the podcast and discussing this topic and helping people deal with bullying. I wish you all the best going forward with your work. And I know we talked offline, perhaps with new things coming out, we're going to have you back on the podcast and we'll talk
Thank you
about
so
it
much.
further.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much for your time.
You're more than welcome. Comments and suggestions for the podcast, you can email me at itsarapwithrap@gmail.com. Our website is itsarapwithrap.com. We have a Facebook group, a couple thousand people in there. It's a Rap with Rap. We're on Instagram. It's a Rap with Rap podcast. And we're also on X or Twitter at Rapper, WRAPPER 130. All the episodes are on our YouTube channel. It's a Rap with Rap, the podcast uncut. Want to thank everyone for listening and please stay safe. And for now, it's a wrap.